Once upon a time, the bustling marketplace was alive with the sounds of merchants haggling and customers bustling between stalls. Zari, his back bent under the weight of a load too heavy for his thin frame and sweating profusely, moved toward the parking lot. Boss madam, your bags are safe, he said, gently placing the luggage into the trunk of a sleek black SUV. Mona observed him silently. There was something about his demeanor, his polite tone, the sadness in his eyes, that caught her attention. What's your name? She asked, her voice firm yet warm. Zari, ma'am. And this is what you do? She pressed, motioning toward the load he had just carried. Zari hesitated, embarrassed. Yes, ma'am. Life has a funny way of humbling you. I've tried. But it seems my dreams aren't meant for this world. Muna tilted her head, studying him. Dreams? Tell me about them. He hesitated but then shared his story. A marketing graduate who had spent years fruitlessly searching for a job. As he spoke, Muna saw not just a porter but a young man crushed by a system that had failed him. Muna's lips curled into a small smile. Perhaps I can offer you a chance. Zari looked up, hope flickering in his eyes for the first time in years. I own a chain of boutiques and a shipping business, she began. I want you to manage one of my stores. It's a start, and I think you'll do well. Zari was stunned. You trust me with that, but we barely know each other. I know enough, Muna said with a shrug. You're hardworking, honest, and driven. Qualities like that are rare. His heart raced. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet, she replied with a sly smile. Show me what you can do. True to her word, Muna handed over the reins to one of her smaller boutiques. Zari threw himself into the work, learning the ropes, building relationships with customers, and increasing sales. Muna watched from the sidelines, impressed by his determination. After several months of working together, their professional relationship deepened into something more personal. 2 years later, Zari and Muna stood hand in hand, exchanging vows in a small but elegant ceremony. The young graduate who once carried heavy loads in the market now walked confidently beside his wife, a self-made woman who had seen potential in him when no one else did. Their life together was beautiful at first. Mona placed Zari in charge of all her businesses, entrusting him with decisions that steered their empire toward greater success. He took on the challenge with vigor, proving himself capable. But as the years rolled by, cracks began to show in their seemingly perfect marriage. Zari, now basking in the power and wealth he had gained, began to change. He came home late, brushing off Muna's questions with vague excuses. His once gentle words turned sharp, his criticism stinging. Do you really have to eat that much? He asked one evening, watching her across the dinner table. You eat like a pig, Muna. No wonder you snore like one. Muna's fork froze midway to her mouth. Zari, what happened to us? He scoffed, pushing his plate away. You happened. Look at you, sweaty, overweight, and unbearable. How do you expect me to sleep in the same room as you? Her heart broke a little more with each word. Mona tried to hold on, convincing herself that the man she fell in love with was still there. But Zari's behavior only grew worse. One night, after a heated argument, he smirked. You think I need you? I have my own businesses now. If I divorce you, I'll still be fine. Mona stared at him, tears streaming down her face. You wouldn't dare. He laughed. Watch me. Unbeknownst to her, Zari had been siphoning money from her accounts for years, secretly building his own empire. When he introduced Sweet Apple, a slender younger woman, as his new wife, Mona was blindsided. You see this woman, he said, wrapping an arm around Sweet Apple. She's everything you're not. Slender, beautiful, and graceful. I want you out of my house. Mona clenched her fists. This house, I bought it, he sneered. And whose name is on the deed? Mona sat alone in the dimly lit living room, tears streaming down her face as Zari's cruel words echoed in her mind. The constant humiliation, the sharp stabs of betrayal, and the sight of Sweet Apple in her place had become unbearable. With a heavy heart and trembling hands, she packed her bags, leaving behind the home she had built with so much love, now tainted by pain and rejection. Zari reclined in the plush sofa of his living room, the faint sound of the TV filling the space as Sweet Apple rested her legs lazily on his lap. They had just finished a lavish meal, and Sweet was scrolling on her phone, chuckling at memes. Suddenly, Zari's phone buzzed on the coffee table. He glanced at the number, his brow furrowing. It was the shipping company. Hello? Zari answered with mild curiosity, but within seconds, his face drained of color. What? No, that can't be. All of it. Capsized? His voice rose in panic as he gripped the phone tightly, beads of sweat forming on his brow. Sweet Apple looked up, alarmed. Honey, what's going on? She asked. But Zari's hands trembled as the phone slipped from his grasp and hit the floor. Before Sweet could say another word, he collapsed onto the carpet, his body limp. Honey, wake up! What's wrong? Sweet screamed, shaking him frantically. Her voice wavered as panic set in. She grabbed her phone and dialed for an ambulance, her heart pounding as she glanced at Zari's unconscious form. Days later, after being discharged from the hospital, Zari sat across from Sweet at the dining table, his face pale and weary. Sweet, I need to talk to you, he began quietly, his voice cracking. Sweet folded her arms, sensing the gravity of the moment. What is it, Zari? He took a deep breath. The ship carrying all my goods. It capsized. Everything is gone. My entire capital. I used my car as security, and I even mortgaged the house to fund the shipment, and I didn't insure it. He looked down, unable to meet her gaze. Sweet's jaw dropped. You mean everything is gone? Zari nodded solemnly. Yes, everything. We're going to have to make some cuts. I was thinking we could sell the Range Rover. The money would help us rent a smaller place and maybe get a cheaper car for me to start driving Uber. It's not ideal, but we have no other choice right now. Sweet stared at him in utter disbelief before erupting. Sell my Range Rover? Are you out of your mind? She yelled, slamming her palm on the table. Sweet, listen to me. No, you, listen to me, she shot back, her voice filled with venom. Do you know how people will laugh at me? Me, Sweet Apple, riding in some cheap car. My husband, an Uber driver. Over my dead body, Zari. I won't let you drag me down with you. Zari sighed deeply, exhaustion etched on his face. Sweet, please, just try to understand. This is about survival now. Sweet scoffed, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Survival. You're supposed to be a man, Zari, a provider. Instead, you've turned into a failure. I refuse to suffer because of your poor decisions. Her words pierced Zari's heart, and for the first time, he felt the weight of the disaster crushing him entirely. Zari sat in his dimly lit living room, staring at the empty walls that once showcased the luxuries of his life. Suddenly, his phone buzzed violently on the table, jolting him from his thoughts. Sweet's name flashed on the screen. Hello? He answered, already sensing trouble. Honey, where are you? I'm near the mall, and the stupid car you brought me is smoking. Sweet's shrill voice pierced his ear. What do you mean smoking? Zari asked. Just get here now, she snapped before hanging up. When Zari arrived, he was greeted by a horrifying sight. The Range Rover engulfed in flames, smoke billowing into the sky as onlookers gathered around. The fire service worked frantically to contain the blaze, but it was too late. The car was a charred wreck. Sweet stood to the side, arms crossed, looking more annoyed than concerned. Well, there you have it, she said flatly as Zari approached, breathless. Sweet, are you okay? What happened? He asked, panic in his voice. I'm fine, she said, brushing past his concern. The car's toast. You can go ahead and sell it as scrap if you want. Zari stared at her in disbelief. Sweet, this was our last asset. Well, that's your problem, isn't it? She said, flipping her hair. Anyway, I'm heading home. I'm too stressed to deal with this nonsense. Without another word, she walked off, leaving Zari standing alone amidst the chaos. When he got back to the house that evening, he found a foreclosure notice pinned to the front door. His heart sank. Inside, Sweet was packing her things. I'm moving into my mother's apartment, she announced coldly. You can come if you want, but don't think I'm staying here to watch you spiral further. Zari sighed, his pride in shreds. Do we have to leave now? I need time to figure things out. I've already figured it out, Sweet retorted. The move is happening tomorrow. The move was nothing short of chaotic. Sweet barked orders at Zari as he hauled boxes and furniture to her mother's small apartment. By the time they were done, Zari was drenched in sweat and emotionally drained. The next morning, just as he thought he could catch a break, Sweet's mother burst into the tiny room he now shared with Sweet. Zari, wake up, she barked, shaking him awake. What's going on? What time is it? He asked groggily, rubbing his eyes. It's 5 a.m. Time to go sell akara, she snapped, thrusting a tray into his hands. Sell akara, Mama, Don't waste my time, she cut him off. You're under my roof now, and you're going to earn your keep. Tomorrow you'll wake up even earlier to help fry them. But Mama, Zari protested weakly, you already have girls selling akara for you. I need time to figure out my next business. Business? Sweet's mother laughed bitterly. You think you're still some big businessman? Wake up, Zari. You're nothing now, so hurry up and get going. Defeated, Zari carried the tray of akara through the streets, tears streaming down his face as he called out to potential customers. The man who once managed boutiques now walked the dusty roads, selling fried bean cakes for the very woman who once called him her odogu-in-law. His humiliation was complete. One sweltering afternoon, as Zari hawked his wares, a sleek car pulled up beside him. Madam, you go buy akara? He asked without looking up. Zari? The voice made him freeze. He turned slowly to see Muna staring at him, her face a mixture of shock and pity. Get in, she said softly. He hesitated but eventually obeyed. As they drove, Muna listened quietly to Zari's story. When he finished, he buried his face in his hands. I deserve everything that has happened to me, he said. Mona reached into her bag, pulling out a wad of cash and a check. Take this. Start over. He shook his head. I can't. Not after everything I did to you. She smiled faintly. I forgave you long ago. You taught me my worth, and because of you, I found the love of my life. Her words stung, but they were the truth. Zari stepped out of the car, clutching the money Muna had given him. As she drove away, he stood on the roadside, watching her disappear into the distance. Shame, regret, and sadness overwhelmed him. Months later, Zari stood outside a small shop he had managed to open with Muna's help. It wasn't much, but it was a start. He worked tirelessly, rebuilding his life one customer at a time. The last time he heard of Sweet, she had taken up with yet another wealthy married man. But her escapades ended disastrously when the man's furious wife discovered the affair and doused her with hot water in a fit of rage, leaving her with burns she would carry forever. Occasionally he thought of Muna. He hoped she was happy, living the life she deserved. Though he knew he could never undo the harm he had caused, he vowed to honor her kindness by becoming a better man. And with that, he turned the shop sign to open, ready to face another day. The moral of the story is that greed and betrayal often lead to downfall, as true success is built on integrity and gratitude. Those who take advantage of others' kindness may eventually face the consequences of their actions, as life has a way of humbling those who act out of pride and selfishness. Muna's forgiveness and kindness paved the way for true redemption. Hi fam, thanks for watching and hope you enjoyed this story. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you. Click the link on the right to dive into yet another captivating tale. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button so you don't miss any of your favorite African folk tales. Until next time, it's bye from us at Apenthene African Stories.